Hello and welcome back to the 15th episode of the Tower Sports Advising Podcast. Today's special guest is Thomas Hughes, assistant coach at Kansas State University.
Appreciate you guys having me.
No problem. All right, Tommy, I want to dive into your playing career. Attended high school in Blacksburg VA from 2012 to 2013. Transferred to Norman North High School in Norman, Oklahoma from 2013 to 2016. 4-year letter winner in high school, 3-time captain, named Oklahoma All-State Team and Regional All-Star. Won the Ferguson Jenkins Award in 2015 as the state's top baseball player. Freshman year of college in 2016, played at Oklahoma, appeared in 29 games, played summer ball in the FCBL for the Pittsfield Suns, named Futures League All-Star. Sophomore year in 2017 at Oklahoma, appeared in 31 games, played summer ball for the Wisconsin Woodchucks and the Northwoods, then moved on to the Wachusett Dirt Dogs in the FCBL. Junior year at Oklahoma, appeared in 24 games, hit .356 with 2 doubles, 6 RBIs. Senior year, transferred to Kansas State, made 57 starts, 49 at shortstop, /208, 361, 257 with 7 doubles, 1 home run, 18 RBIs. Led K-State with 45 walks, most by a Wildcat since 2012. Finished third on the team in OBP, drew 5 walks in the Big 12 championship, most by a Wildcat in a single championship.
Wow. I appreciate you reading off all the good stuff. You didn't want to read off all the bad stuff too, because there's plenty of that too.
Yeah, I'm with you there, dude. It's plenty of bad stuff, right? The first question I want to ask you is, what was your recruiting journey like?
I think mine was a little unique. Given my situation, obviously, my dad being in the college coaching industry for a long time, not only did I have perspective on kind of what it looked like and how it was going to be dealt with as far as the recruiting process goes, but I also knew that kind of growing up that if I had the opportunity, I always wanted to play for him. And the uniqueness for me was it was a dinner conversation. It's like, hey, I think you're good enough to play at Oklahoma. Would you be interested in doing that? And it's kind of all in on that. And so that was really the extent of it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'd gotten calls and gone to camps at other places, but at the end of the day, if the opportunity was to play for my dad, that was kind of what I wanted to do. So
yeah, for me, when we were talking about this one, I talked with Zach and he said we were bringing you on. My thought process was, did you really entertain any offers, or is it kind of like, hey, if I can play for dad, I want to play for dad?
I mean, I definitely listened to any other offers and was interested because if at the end of the day, like I wasn't good enough to play at Oklahoma, which obviously is a high level of baseball, then I wanted to make sure I had backup options. But if the opportunity presented itself to play for him, then that was kind of what I wanted to do from the start.
I mean, kind of off topic here, but what was it like for college football games at Oklahoma?
It was fun. It was hot, like really hot. Also, I'm kind of different where I think the best seat in the house is, on your couch watching it on TV. But we went to a lot of games, a lot of fun. It's just the same way here at Kansas State. I mean, it's a packed house, whether they're 0-6 or 6-0. And it's just in my opinion, a good representation of the community and the college feel that it has, because, when you're in there and you see 80,000 people going crazy, it's like, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
It's definitely different for sure. I mean, yeah. Moving on to question number 2, what was it like playing under your dad at Oklahoma and Kansas State?
I like if I thought that he was going to treat me any differently because I was his son and I wouldn't have wanted to play for him, I knew that he wouldn't. That's kind of why, I wanted to go play for him at Oklahoma and at Kansas State. But I don't know, it was a blast. Like, I knew what I was getting into. Not only do you get to, spend every day, around your dad playing baseball at the highest level, but you get this, you already know kind of how he runs things and how he runs the program and what he expects from his players. Growing up in his dugout, like, I had a really good feel for that stuff, obviously. Yeah, it was kind of comfortable, but at the same time, like, it was also a challenge because that, like, you were kind of under a microscope because you were the coach's kid. And so you had to kind of earn a respect amongst your teammates and amongst, the other assistant coaches to prove that you were in the program, not just because you were his kid, because you deserved to be there and that you weren't going to be treated any differently.
Well, it's pretty cool. I mean, how many kids can say they played for their dad at the college level?
Exactly. And, that was part of the thing too, where it was like, not only just college level, but to get to play, in the Big 12 for your dad and, get to experience the ups and the downs with him through the season, through the practices. I don't know. It was pretty lucky, to be honest with you.
I mean, it goes back into like what people call daddy ball here, right? Essentially, like youth baseball and stuff like that. But now it's like, your dad, I know your dad, he's going to hold you to a standard higher than the kids he already does. So it's like, if you suck, you're going to sit, and that's just the end of it. And I know how he is, but it's like, This is the reason he's the winningest coach in Big 12 right now, currently, right?
Yeah.
Like,
No, 100%. And like I said, if he was going to treat me any differently, which from an easier standpoint, it's not an avenue I wanted to go on, but I knew if anything, he was going to, hold me to a higher standard than anybody else. And that's kind of what I wanted. I've always felt like, between me and my brothers, he's held us to a high standard and got us on a correct path and led us to where we're on today and able to have, I don't know, the most successful place possible.
I mean, look at where you played, right? You played at Oklahoma and Kansas State. Hal played at LSU and Rice, and then your younger brother played at Kansas State for 4 years.
Yep.
It's like it's big time baseball. I mean,
and my youngest right now, the youngest one, because we had a sister in between who's at KU, and then our youngest is at Richmond right now playing baseball.
There's a fourth one?
Oh yeah, we got 5. I'm the oldest of 5.
Boy.
I knew you had a sister, but I didn't know there was a fifth one.
Yeah, PJ, he just finished his freshman year at Richmond. He actually they're playing in the semifinals for New Britain right now in the Futures League, and he loves it there. So
I think for me, with your dad having been in baseball for a really long time, did he kind of let you guys do your thing? You said you were the oldest of 5. Does your dad have a lot of hand in helping you, guide you through the process, or was it kind of like, hey, I'm going to let you guys do your thing, and if you need to ask questions, you can ask questions?
he's always been very much hands off, especially on the baseball side of things. We never did lessons. The extent of him giving us lessons was going out and playing, we called it street ball, but he'd get a tennis racket and tennis ball and hit his ground balls. He would hit his ground balls in the youth fields whenever we wanted to. He'd throw his batting practice, but it was never like what you see in lessons nowadays with like mechanical breakdowns. Like he wasn't the person to give us that, whether it was like just baseball development or even in the recruiting process. Like he was, hey, if you want my help, like I'm here, but I'm never going to force any sort of thing on you. And I think that's kind of what was able to make us like thrive a little bit, because if we wanted to get better, like we did it on our own. It was no external motivation, right? So, my brother and I, all of us, we'd go in there and hit all the time on our own. And, he'd provide us with the key to get in the hitting facility. And then he would go and do his thing and we'd do our thing. And it was very much a hands-off approach. But he was there if we kind of asked questions about things.
I mean, I think it was, what was that? The year did you play with me in Wachusett?
Yeah.
And Hal was in Pittsfield that year?
How was in Pittsfield?
So I remember it, and it was like, just kind of talking about like how your family is. I think, and I played in Pittsfield, so I understand you played in Pittsfield, and the cage there sucks, right? The dirt is like, when you're hitting in that cage, it's a gully, right? But I remember us showing up one day, and I think we showed up, and Hal was like drenched in a shirt, and I think he was on like, he was like, I don't know, I think he was on like 0 for 3 the night before, and we showed up, and I think it was me, you, and him just talking, and you were like, how long have you been out here? And he's like, 2 hours. I can't get a hit, or I can't buy one. And I'm like, dude, that's just like, that's summer ball, right? I mean, the Futures League now is essentially the Northwoods League. These kids are playing 62 games in 64 days.
No, definitely.
I think back
crazy
to our days, right? And I think the year I won it in Worcester, I think we played like 54 games. And even then, that was a lot. Like,
well, it was a lot. And I know my first year in Pittsfield, it was after my freshman year of college. I needed to get at bats. And so like I was begging to get in the lineup every single day. And that sounds crazy nowadays because, a lot of times kids are wanting to go home after a certain amount, or they just want to go hit the weight room, which is a good approach too. But at some point you need to get at bats, right? But we were in a spot where we had, I think, 3 infielders, especially middles on our teams. I think we played 56 games. I played 55. It was essentially, I don't know, it's craziness. It's so many games, but it's I think it's really good as far as, I don't know, guys that need at bats. It helps them kind of basically make up for a whole season, right?
I think I enjoyed summer ball more than I enjoyed college baseball. And I think that doesn't me saying that I didn't enjoy college baseball. I think summer baseball puts you in a better standard of like, all right, you're playing every day. It's the closest you can get to being in a minor league system or a big league system, whatever you want to call it. But like, you wake up, you go to the field, you hit, you do early work. If you need ground balls, you do that. You eat lunch, you hang out at the field, hang out with the guys for a little bit. Then you go into your BP, whatever, IO, whatever, however the team runs it, right? And then you go into the other team hits, you get ready to play, you play the game, you go home, you do it again the next day. And I think like it's a lot easier to be not a streaky hitter as in college, where you play like 1 midweek and then 3 games or 4 games on the weekend, depending on what conference you're in. But I think it's more consistency, and I think that's what developed kids a lot more nowadays. Like you said, some kids don't want to play anymore. And I'm like, summer ball makes these kids better. And that's not saying guys like you on your job aren't doing your job, but it gives them the at-bats and the innings that they didn't get during the season because they weren't ready. And I don't think kids realize it early enough in the process.
Trust me, like, so one of the things that I do here at Kansas State is summer ball placement, and put guys in certain leagues. And it's the biggest battle that we fight, especially in summer, is these guys, they don't want to stay. And I get it. Like, everyone needs a rest period, but at the same time, like, colleges understand that as well. And so if you go and get 150, 200 at bats in the summer, we're not going to ask you to come back right away, at least not here, and jump right in and go crazy with fall ball, right? We don't start fall ball until September 27th. So we use summer ball as a gigantic tool to help you get better. But then we understand if you're going to get 150 at bats or throw 30, 40 innings, you're going to have time to kind of relax and rejuvenate yourself when you get to campus. I'm not saying we don't do anything, but we do the individual period, right? Which is 2 hours a week, pretty much 4 sessions of 30 minutes is all we can get. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And take a batting practice and take ground balls. But that allows guys to, after they go and get their 150, 200 at-bats, whatever it is in summer ball, to come back and kind of reset, recharge their battery, get going with school and get started with classes. And then when September 27th comes around and we really hit the ground going with scrimmages and heavier practice days, guys are rejuvenated and ready to go even after their 150 at-bats in summer ball. And so that's how we do it here, and that's what we try to get across to our guys is like, summer ball is a gigantic tool. Let's use it. And then when you get back, now we can take our time to kind of reset, recharge our battery, and get going when it comes time to really compete in fall ball.
Yeah, I think going off with what Zach said earlier, like it's kind of like a getaway thing for guys. Like you can just go and do your thing, right? And I think going back, like you guys obviously are hammering things home every single day. You got your core principles, your culture, that type of thing. But it's also good to play for some of these coaches that you obviously played for or know personally, and they can implement some things that they see that you might have just risked over or you missed by accident, something like that, because you can't hammer home everything, right? So I think it's a good thing where those little things that can be changed or those finite details that could be added to help a kid, where you said you get those 150 at-bats. We were talking about it the other day. Like as a freshman, getting 10, 15 at-bats in college baseball is incredible, right? And that's 10, 15 at-bats over a 4-month span, right? So if you could go get those 100 to 150 to 200 at-bats over the summer, that puts you in a better spot to not only come back for your sophomore season or your junior season where, hey, your shortstop got drafted or your center fielder got hurt and now you got to scuffle around the roster. I don't think kids understand how important that development aspect is because they see these things on social media of the guys throwing in the pitching lab or they're going to drive line and, hey, I need to gain bat speed or I need to do this. But sometimes guys just need to see live pitching or face live batters. And I don't think they really understand that until it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of different ways to get better, but the best way to get better is just to play, right? And in my opinion, you can't really get to the peak of where you are as a baseball player without playing baseball and playing a lot of it. And it's such a repetition sport where, if you're not getting the amount of reps that you're supposed to get, like it's impossible to reach your ceiling as a player. And going back to what you said about getting in front of other eyes too, like we don't have any egos here. Like we want to get guys in front of as many guys as possible and hear any sort of advice from summer ball coaches or anybody else that's out there, because at the end of the day, like we are consumed with making our guys the best that they can be. And if that's taking a couple pieces of advice from a summer ball coach that we went to, then that's great. Then we'll use it. At the end of the day, our job is to get guys to their peak as a player. If it's taking advice from other people, then we're gladly willing to do that.
Hi, Tommy, I want to dive into your coaching career. After playing senior year at Kansas State, spent 1 season as volunteer assistant at Moorhead State. Season got short due to COVID in 2020. 2020 joined the Kansas State coaching staff. Currently entering 6th season this fall. Helps with recruiting, serves as third base coach. In 2024, you helped K-State to its first run in NCAA tournament and super regional since 2013. For you, and obviously with what you've grown up in, like the system with Dad, what were the main differences for you in coaching at Moorhead and Kansas State?
I loved Moorhead. I know I wasn't there for too long because, like you said, COVID kind of shortened it, but I loved it there because, especially as a first job, like I was cutting the grass. I was in charge of, a lot of the travel stuff, the budget stuff, ordering equipment. But I found there at Moorhead, like those kids there really appreciated everything that you did. And it wasn't super resourced like we are here at Kansas State. From, there was one weight room for the whole university, those sort of things. But those kids, they worked their butts off and they appreciated everything that came to them. I was 23 years old, coaching for the first time and in charge of the infield every day. It would have been super easy for those kids to just be like, yeah, what does this guy know? Like he's 23 years old. I shouldn't listen to him. But they didn't. They welcomed me. They bought into everything that, me and our staff were talking about. And I don't know, I loved it. And doing all those other little jobs besides just coaching the infield, it really makes you appreciate kind of what we have here and everything else that Kansas State's able to provide.
I think it's cool to hear the stories of like everyone's first coaching job, like once they're done college. And it's like, what is it actually like? Because you have all these expectations and you have all these things like going into it. But then you get there and it's like, am I going to love it or am I going to hate it?
Right. Especially like I've been super spoiled growing up and around my dad's dugouts with, he's been at Virginia Tech, Boston College, all these Power 4 programs, right? And getting to go to Moorhead, I had never really been in that environment before, but I loved it. And I think it kind of really solidified for me, like, okay, this is what I want to do, right? Like you never really know, like you said, until you actually get into it, if you're really going to love it or not. And just being around those guys every day and getting to not only just coach them during practice, but making sure the field was up to par, making sure they had the right equipment ready to go for lifting or practice. I don't know, when you go that deep in the weeds as far as like the guts of the program, it really makes you become more sort of invested in it, if that makes sense. And I don't know, I loved it there. And I wish it didn't get cut short like it did, but I don't know, I wouldn't trade that year for anything. It was a blast.
Yeah, I think going off of what you said with investing, you look at Murray State making the World Series this year. They're not Power 4 school. They're mid-major. They're grinding out probably. They don't get the budget like some other schools have. And it's great to see these coaches that are getting these contracts after doing what they're doing with what they're given. You said like K-State, you probably have a decent sized budget. You kind of get, if you want something, you could get it. You could go up to the higher ups. They'll figure it out. But probably at Moorhead or these other schools, those calls don't always get answered, right? So you got to kind of deal with what you got and you take it. Once you're in it, you're like, okay, I didn't think this is what it was. But once you're in there and you're in the art of war with your guys and all that stuff, you're like, okay, this is what we're dealt and we got to work with it. And I think you guys could use that to explain to some of the kids that like who go to these big schools. They're like, they get the brand new baseballs and things like that. Their grass is perfectly manicured. Not everybody has those things. So for the guys that are grinding out there, that you still get that opportunity to play D1 baseball, it's great, but it's not all sunshines and rainbows because not everybody has this unlimited budget like Oregon does with Phil Knight and things like that, or your Floridas, your Texases, your things like that, they just make money appear, right? And you said it perfectly. It's like you just want to grind with your guys, and if they're open to grind with you, you're gonna give it all you got.
Yeah, there's a certain level of, I guess, investment or camaraderie you get with those guys when you're kind of, you feel like you're under resourced or something along those lines, but you find out who really is in it for the right reasons, right? You find out who's playing college baseball because they love baseball or they're passionate about wanting to play at the next level and they're not making decisions off of cool locker room, right? And when it comes down to it, the people are what matter. And we tell our guys this all the time in the recruiting process, whether high school kids or portal kids, is there's a lot of awesome things about Kansas State, right? We're in the Big 12, playing Division I baseball at the highest level. Our locker room's sweet, right? They got really cool purple lights. We have a lot of really good resources and facilities, but that's not why you should make your decision, right? All that stuff's superficial. All that stuff doesn't matter if you're going into that cool locker room every day hating your life because you don't like the people you're around. Right. And so we always tell our guys when they're trying to make a decision, is our biggest piece of advice is make your decision based off of people, because that's who you're going to be around every day. You can have the best locker room in the world, but if you don't like the people you're around every day from a coaching standpoint or a player standpoint, it doesn't matter. Right. So that's the biggest thing for us. And like you said, we talked about Murray State, which is an awesome story, but it just seems like there's a lot of really good people involved, and there's a lot of really good people at mid majors too that are able to get the most out of their kids. And maybe guys that didn't have success at other places or under recruited at a high school, if they're around good people in a good environment, then they're able to get to where their highest potential as a baseball player and as a person. And that's I think where you see kind of those stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Diving into the next part is recruiting. What are you looking for in a recruit when you go to see them play an event, pitchers and hitters? Is there something that stands out about both for you?
The first thing we look for, especially like, I don't know, me specifically, but if a kid's like flying around, playing super hard and like has a ton of energy, especially at these events, they can drag on for a long time. And maybe it's, I don't know, 9:30 at night because there's been a 7,000 lightning delays at the facility and the kid's going crazy running around. And then you hope the kid can play, right? That stuff jumps off the page right away. It doesn't matter about how big he is, how hard he can hit the ball, how hard he can throw the ball. But like, if the kid's really competing and playing really hard, then you kind of start to lock in on him to see if he can play or not. And then other than that, man, it's like pitching wise, you can throw 100 miles an hour, but if you can't throw strikes, you're not going to help us win. Pitchability with multiple pitches is huge. And velocity is a sure plus, but it's by far not even close to the end all be all for us. Additionally, I kind of hinted on the playing hard aspect, but athleticism is huge, especially if you have the ability to play in the middle of the field. But especially how we run our offense is we do a lot of running. So the athleticism piece is big for us. And then swing and miss is don't like to see swing and miss. The ability to hit velocity and hit breaking balls is the biggest one because if you can't hit breaking balls at our level, you're gonna struggle. And that's just kind of the things that we kind of key in on.
I mean, I think if anything, since I've met you and your dad and your brothers, like your dad loves athletes, right? And if your teams that you've played on that I've watched that you guys have coached and he's been a part of since I've known you guys is athletes. Like I feel like that's a huge key in what you guys are doing over there.
Yeah, and one that allows us to do that. But two, you can do so much more with the guy that's athletic, right? If he doesn't stick in the infield and you want the batting lineup, you can slide him to the outfield. There's just so much more you can do from a versatility standpoint if the kid's athletic, right? If he's not athletic, then it's like kind of limits you to what you can do offensively, but also defensively. So it's just I don't know. It's kind of the model that we've kind of built, and sure, we're gonna have some big bats that are gonna play the corners that maybe aren't crazy athletic, but you better really be able to hit to be able to do that.
You touched on your guys' philosophy. I know me and Zach were talking, and I kind of asked, I was like, what's your guys' philosophy early? It's like some teams just like to hit the long ball and don't steal, or they bunt, run, things like that. When you going back to what you were talking about, is speed's not end all be all, right? If you're watching a kid and he can steal bags, but might be a 6'8" runner or 6'9" runner compared to that kid who's that 6'2" burner, right? And he doesn't really know what he's doing. I think kids get lost in the mindset of, if I don't hit this perfect number, if I don't run that 6'4" at camp, coach ain't going to look at me. And it's hard to explain to these kids that IQ kind of plays because it's kind of a lost art and you can't really teach something like that. So trying to hammer home to the guys that if you could steal a bag, you can steal a bag. Coaches are going to realize that. So don't get all caught up in the numbers like you were saying with the exit velos, the velo on the arm, stuff like that.
Yeah, no, the biggest question that I get asked all the time from high school parents are, if my son wants to play center field at Kansas State, what does he have to run a 60 in? And I always say that doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, we've had kids here that will run a 6'3", 60, but when they get to first base, you're scared to death that they're going to get picked off. Like, it doesn't matter. And we've had a few kids that have had crazy tools here, like the fastest kids on our team that we can't do anything with from a base running standpoint because they don't have the baseball IQ to steal a base. And just a good example of it is our first baseman in the last 2 years, David Bishop, is, I don't know, mid-tier runner, maybe even sub mid-tier runner. I mean, he plays first base for us, big kid, and he'll tell you the same thing. I have no problem telling that. He's going to be
I'm sure he will, but that's the best part of what you're saying.
And I think he was 19 of 19 last year on stolen bases just because he has a feel for it, right? And we even he has the green light whenever he was on first base or second base. If he wanted to go, he felt like he could go, he would go. And he wasn't a burner. His IQ was off the charts. He took a lot of pride in his preparation as far as understanding what the pitcher does, what his tendencies are when he picks off, when he doesn't. And we provide a ton of that stuff on our scouting report. And some guys will utilize that and some guys won't. And he was a guy that, he really utilized the tools that he was given. And like I said, he wasn't a 6'2" guy, but he's probably a 7'2" guy. But he could steal bases at about as efficient as anybody on our team.
I think it's cool too. And it's like, I just think about when we played, right? I was fast essentially back in our day. I was the best 60 I ever ran was like a 6'7", right? But I was at 6'4", what was I, probably 235 at the time, 245. But it's like back in the day that was like lightning. But I feel like now like there's guys that are my size that you're seeing do more of that. But it also goes back into the IQ part of like I don't think I really learned how to steal a base until I got to college. Like it wasn't a taught thing back when we played. Right now, it's like you might spend a whole college practice once a week on it because if you can't teach your, especially at your level, like if you can't teach a guy to steal a base, you're not going to score many runs.
Right. And just look at where pro ball's going right now, right? Where you have obviously the pitch clock and the pickoff rules, but the stolen base is valuable in pro ball, right? Guys that weren't getting to big leagues 5 or 6 years ago because they couldn't hit home runs are now getting in the big leagues on the fast track to get to the big leagues because they can steal bases.
Chandler Simpson.
Right, 100%. Him, Victor Scott, the center fielder for St. Louis, who was at West Virginia, same thing. If that guy 5 or 6 years ago, he might still be in single A, he might not get drafted, right? And so it's such a valuable piece for our program in general to have success, but also for guys to get to the next level, right? It's not only important now for us to evaluate if a guy can steal bases, it's now becoming a huge, weapon for guys to get to the big leagues, right? And get drafted higher. If, like, for example, our center fielder 2 years ago on our super regional team, he stole 40 bases for us. I think he was like, might be 42 or 44 or something like that. He's now in Double A with the Yankees, the number 20, I think, overall prospect in the Yankees organization. He was able to really, he didn't play as a freshman, just for example, but he was really able to buy into this process. He could always run. He never really had the full ability to steal bases, at least to his capability. But again, bought into the system. Next thing you know, 42 bases. Now he's on the fast track to the big leagues, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, it's not only the speed piece, it's a lot of the IQ and buying in and listening and wanting to be better at it. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is like the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. It's like you can beat these guys with information to death, right? But if they don't want to buy in and they don't care to learn these things, then you're wasting time almost, right? And it's like if you're bringing these guys in, obviously you see a higher potential than they might see themselves. So like you're trying to ultimately lift them to this highest level and they're just kind of kicking tires and like just relying on pure ability. What people don't realize is in the Big 12, the SEC, all the Power Fours, even the mid-majors now, like there's dudes that play, right? And it's not just off of sheer talent alone. It's hitting the weight room, studying these things, getting these profiles for these pitchers, or if you're a pitcher, getting these profiles for these hitters and figuring out ways to attack these guys. And if you don't buy into those things, you're kind of just wasting your time.
100%. I mean, we had a recruit on campus, yesterday, 2 days ago, and he asked a really good question. He's a high school kid, and he said, like, I've heard from all these people about how much faster the game is at Division I level from high school. He said, but what is your biggest piece of advice as far as, to get me ready to play at the highest level, at the Big 12, Division I? And what I told him, I was like, it has nothing to do with talent-wise. Like, if you weren't good enough, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. You wouldn't be on our campus. The biggest adjustment that kids have, especially today's day and age where it's showcase-driven, right? It's how hard can I hit it? How fast can I throw it? How fast can I run? It's the biggest adjustment that we see, especially from high school guys, is understanding the game and knowing the game. I mean, you could have the best batting practice in the world. You can have a great fall even, right? But if we're scared to death to put you in the outfield because we don't know where you're going to throw the ball if the ball gets hit to you, like, seriously. And then even if you're on first base, if you can run a 6.2 60, like I kind of hinted at before, but we're scared to death you're going to get picked off every time you're on the base. We don't know if you're going to run with your eyes up and pick up your third base coach when you're on second. Like, that stuff matters. And if you don't understand the game, you can't play at this level. That's just how it is. It's the biggest adjustment. And guys that are able to pick up on the IQ part or study the game and ask a bunch of questions, not only does it give us the freedom to play you a lot more, but it slows the game down for guys, right? So as a freshman, the biggest piece is, if I'm playing shortstop, right? And the ball gets hit to left field and I don't know where I'm supposed to go on cuts and relays. Now all of a sudden everything starts to speed up on you. Things start going a million miles an hour. And now you're making errors that you wouldn't normally make because you're thinking way too much because you're not prepared, right? So when guys are able to play in the field and slow the game down, or base run and slow the game down, now they're able to get to the best of their abilities as a baseball player because at this point they can just play. They don't have to worry about all this other extracurricular stuff because they already know what's going to happen 2 steps before it happens.
I think going into that and kind of while we're on the recruiting topic is like people don't understand that 90%, I would even say more, like there are diamonds in the rough, but recruiting has gone off of connections now. And it's like, I'm not going to reach out to you with a kid that I don't think can play power forward baseball, because then I'm going to lose that respect from you because I'm just wasting your time. And it's like, yes, the perfect games, the prospect select, like those and all the showcases that kids go to are great, right? Because that's one option of getting eyes on you. But it's also, if you don't have connections and people in your corner that actually know people and have trust that you're going to send a guy that's going to be valuable to you, this doesn't work anymore. Because I think about when we played, right? Like if you're in your shoes right now, and I'm a high school baseball player, when we played, you're coming to watch me play in high school. You're coming to watch me play in summer ball. You're probably inviting me on campus for a visit. Then we're going to talk after that, right? Now it's like, I got to watch you play because Coach Tower reached out to me with a suggestion, right? Come watch you play. Then you're probably going to send video or however you guys do it and keep in track until you think it's a good time to have you on campus, possibly come to a showcase now. And then from there, all right, maybe I need to see you one more time. And then talks might happen. Whereas back in the day, the process was a lot easier. You were either checked on the list or you're checked off. Now it's like there might be 50 checks boxes by the time you're at that school that was recruiting you from the start.
Yeah, 100%. And now, today's day and age, with everything that goes on with the portal and junior college and high school kids, it's like you said, we have to check a lot more boxes because we have to be more picky. Because honestly, even with roster cuts too, like we can't bring in as many kids as we once were able to. So you have to really make sure that you're checking every single box before you go in and kind of move on a kid, right? So whether it's, like you said, recommendations or going to see the kid play or checking with the high school coach and then calling for a character reference on a travel ball coach, there's a lot of steps to the process. And I think it's part of it's good because you're really forced to really do your full due diligence and research so you know who you're getting as a player, but also as a person. But it's a much more extensive process that I think the kids and sometimes coaches might get frustrated by, because it's like, all right, like we've talked on the phone, like, what's the offer? Like, can we get on campus? But it's like there's so many more steps to it because we really do have to be picky because our classes are shrinking, and especially from a high school standpoint. And if we don't do our full research, it's not fair to us, but also to the kids in general.
Yeah, I think another thing is for the kids to understand is with those roster limits being a thing, like coaches' jobs are on the line, right? Like you're there to win. And if you don't bring in the best talent or what you deem as the best talent, you find yourself on the road, sitting at home looking on Indeed or LinkedIn, right, trying to find another job. And these kids try to rush these processes because they might not understand it. And then you got you as yourself, like you're probably traveling all over the country looking at so many different kids, having camps on campus, things like that, going to other camps. And these kids are trying to get these offers and things like that. And like you said, you're doing your due diligence, because if you miss, say you only bring in 4 or 5 high school kids and you miss on 4 of them, that sets you back way more than the kids think it does, because you're competing at the highest level. Your job is to win a ton of games, go to the Big 12, win the Big 12, ultimately get to regionals, and then hopefully host a super and then go to Omaha, right? Like that's everyone's dream. And it's if you miss on that kid, you miss on one kid, no big deal. But if you start missing on multiple kids, then your coaches' jobs are at stake, right? And I think they don't really understand that until they fully understand once they're in it. That's something I didn't understand as a kid. I'm playing college baseball. I got to play at 2 schools, and then I ultimately went to Yale. And then I sat down with my head coach, who I was lucky enough to play for, and he's like, our jobs are at stake. And he's like, if we don't recruit at the highest level, I won't be here. They're going to kick me off and they're going to hire someone else. And coaching jobs are at the abundance nowadays. Everybody seems like they're trying to get one. And kids just don't understand that the coach's job is to win.
Right. And I understand it too from a high school standpoint. Like you said, the kids, maybe their parents have never been in an environment of college baseball and they just don't really understand how it works. And, that's why we try to provide as much information as possible to kind of get them to understand our side of things as well. And then at the same time, it's like, it's a big decision for these kids too, going to college, obviously, to play at our level. It's a big decision. I understand the urgency and the importance of it, but at the end of the day, if the high school kid's good enough to play at our level, he will end up at our level, right? If it takes a little bit longer than maybe the parents or the kid had in mind, then it will. But it'll work out. Like you said, we get hired and fired based off of if we win or lose games. And especially at this level, the leash isn't very long. So we really have to make sure that even though it might seem like a long drawn out process, we just have to make sure that we're being thorough with everything and making sure that we don't just get the right players, but we get the right people. Because that's a big piece of the culture and why we've been able to turn this program around is we have really good players, but we have really good people too. And some people might not think that matters as much, especially in the portal days where there's a lot more turnover than there has been. But we still take pride in doing that research as well and making sure it's a good fit for our culture, and that drives Kansas State baseball is our culture and the people in it.
Moving on to the next question you touched on a little bit, but can you explain the differences you've experienced from being able to recruit nationally?
Yeah, but it's being in our region of the country because we're basically smack dab in the middle, right? So we go everywhere. We have kids on our team we've had Venezuela last couple of years. We have, like I said, our shortstops from Japan. We have Florida, pretty much everybody, right? And we have a soft spot, I think, for the Northeast guys, just because, I don't know, my dad and obviously me are from that region of the country. But yeah, we're really not limited to really any part of the country. And I think it's been a huge advantage for us being kind of in the middle because everyone's kind of, it's never a coast to coast trip for somebody if they're too afraid of leaving home or going far from home. But yeah, really, as far as recruiting nationally, man, like we have name a state, we've had a guy on the roster from it in the last 3 years.
I mean, I think it's cool. I mean, just trying to book this with you, right? Like you're like, I'm going to the Cape. I'm going back home. I'm going to the Futures. I'm going back home. I'm going on vacation. I'm going back home. Like you're all over the place. And I think that I know Pee Wee and I have talked about it, but it goes back to these coaches are everywhere. And again, there aren't most paid third coaches in college baseball, right? Anywhere. Some schools have it, yes, because of the rule, and some opted into it. But like these guys are spending their entire summer. Most of them have kids. Most of them are married, right? And they're all over the country just maybe to watch one kid, which is the crazy part.
I was probably home for 4 days in June, and 3 of them were because it was a dead period. But yeah, to your point, like just my first trip, especially with the portal. So for example, like the portal is so fluid. Everything changes. Kids go in every day, kids commit every day, and you never really know where you're going to end. So last year, for example, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee. I was supposed to go up to Madison, Wisconsin the next day to watch one kid pitch. That kid said, look, I'm going to commit somewhere else. And so we said, okay, now I don't need to go to Wisconsin. And then I get a call from our recruiting coordinator and say, hey, look, this kid got in. He's from Texas. He might be interested. Can you be in Martha's Vineyard tomorrow night to watch him pitch?
Not the Sharks, baby.
Sharks. And so I'm like, all right, let's see if I can even make this happen as far as getting a flight in time, getting on a ferry, flying into Newport, driving from Newport to Falmouth, getting on a ferry to go across. Made it probably 10 minutes before game time, watched the kid pitch 3 innings, and then got basically on the ferry back and then spent the next 6 days in the Cape. Then it was like, all right, this kid just got in, but he's throwing in the California League in LA. Can you get to LA by tomorrow? So it's like, all right, now we got to drive to Boston and fly from there to LA. But to your point, man, like it's not just, we're not the only ones doing that. Like that's happening everywhere. And again, kind of what I mentioned earlier, like if you're good enough to play at this level, one will not only know about you, but we'll make sure we go out to see you. And we may be a little bit of the extreme as far as having to see everybody before we offer them. We'll never just really offer off of a video unless it's a very specific case, but we like to go actually see in person before we kind of make those decisions. And I think that alludes to why we are, not just me, our whole staff is traveling kind of all across the country throughout the whole summer to make sure we're seeing kids.
I think the crazy part is what you just described. You're going to all these summer league games, right? I've only been out of the recruiting process 2017, right? It feels like before the portal hit, it was you're going to these AAU events, you're going to see high school games, things like that. Like you just touched on, you're going to see kids in the portal pitch in summer ball leagues. Majority of the time, I feel like before, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a few years back before COVID, it was you were going to summer ball games to potentially watch one of your kids throw to see how he's doing. That's about it. Now you're recruiting at summer ball games. And I think it's crazy because what we touched on earlier about getting those at bats. If you're in the portal and you crush the summer, you don't know who's watching because everybody's going these different directions. And like you said, you're in the Cape, you're in Martha's Vineyard, you're up in the Northwoods League, you're out in the California leagues, like things like that. Like there's so many people in so many different directions. I feel like the recruiting process for summer ball has completely changed, because you're going to summer ball and there's some opportunities that you might not have had 2 years ago when you committed to a school, but now you're in the portal and it's a whole different process than what it was previously.
Yeah, summer ball is maybe as important now as it has ever been, especially if you are in the transfer portal. But just for example, like people everywhere, like I was sitting at Martha's Vineyard, right, watching this kid pitch, and it was me, Texas State, and Louisiana Lafayette sitting on Martha's Vineyard watching a kid pitch. Like it's craziness. But yeah, like you said, summer ball is as important as ever because everyone's out watching, and you're able to put up numbers and or pitch well or hit well in summer ball, then it can play a big factor on where you end up if you are in the transfer portal.
Can I get an interesting question for you off of that I just thought of? So, like you said, it was you guys, Louisiana Lafayette, and then
In Texas State.
In Texas State, right? Do you have like a recruiting like moment for you of like if all three of you guys offered a right-handed pitcher, a left-handed pitcher, a full scholarship, right, for that following year? Is there something that like a recruit has said to you that's like stuck out to be like why they chose you?
I wouldn't say necessarily.
I feel like in the D1, right? Like with pitches, especially, like they're throwing all kinds of money at these people, right? And it'll bleed into my next question with NLI, but like, is there anything that was like, I really like the coaching staff or like something that sold them that was like different from everywhere else that was offering?
Yeah, I think the best ones, because everyone kind of has certain different parameters on why they're making a decision. Sometimes it's location, sometimes it's, you'll see a lot in the portal, like a lot of people want to be close to home in their last year so they can play in front of their families. The coolest one for us is when people say like, we really feel like this is a good fit from a personality standpoint in the coaching staff, and we feel comfortable with sending our kid, or as the kid would say, I feel comfortable playing in your program because I feel like I can be the best version of myself as a player and as a person in this environment. And the reason why we think that's the coolest is we get it every so often, but that's like I said before, that's what drives this program is the people. And we feel like we have a really good culture and environment where kids are able to thrive as people and as players, to where that's when we kind of know that that's the right fit for us, is when a kid tells us that, if that makes sense. And sometimes it takes a kid being in the program for a little bit to really come out and say that. But when a kid can realize that in the recruiting process and kind of verbalize that to us, it's pretty cool.
Does that hit home from like your dad like teaching you guys when you were younger, kind of like just being yourself and like if you need help I'll help you?
A little bit. It's also so often these days it's like everyone asks, they want to see what the locker room looks like, they want to see what this looks like, and it's like, yeah, that stuff's cool, but it's superficial. And I touched on it before, it's like,
but that's what Google's for. Go look at that on Google. You can see it.
Right.
Like, sweet. That's not
right.
what, and I tell kids all the time, you're not buying the gear, you're not buying the field, you're not buying the locker room, you're buying the coaching staff. Because
Exactly.
now with the portal, if you don't mesh well after that fall, especially at D1 with the roster cuts, you're gone. Like, see ya. You're back in the portal again, or you're in the portal for the first time.
And why when kids tells you that, and they're making a decision because of money or because of the facilities, they're making a decision because they feel like they're in a good environment. That's where you're going to get the right fit.
Yeah, just real quick, and this could be a complex question, but in your best short span, could you just explain the difference between the best player compared to a best fit? I think kids don't really understand that. These schools don't always recruit the best players. It's like you want to find the kid that will mesh with your team, because you don't want to bring in, say, the best kid in the country. I always think about the Summer Catch, the movie, with the blonde-headed pitcher, right? He was supposed to be the first rounder, right? He was the crown jewel of the first round, and nobody liked him, right? And I think people don't understand that when you're recruiting, you're there to build a team. You're not there to build a one-person show. It's not the pony show, right? It's how can these guys mesh together? And I think people don't really grasp the concept of these coaches not always are recruiting the best players. Your PBRs, 98s on the PBR, your 10s on the perfect game scale. You might go for that 9.2 rating who's a really good individual who you can work with, and when you get him on campus in 2 years or a year from now, he's going to be fine, and there's nothing you really have to worry about.
No, 100%. And that goes back to like we were talking about before about checking 50 boxes as opposed to 3 boxes. We're looking for the right players, but also the right people and right families. Yeah, it's a big thing. And you can be the best player on the field, like you said, but if we don't think that you're going to fit from a personality standpoint in our culture, whether it's how you play the game, whether it's anything as far as that goes, we're just not going to go on it. Like that's just when we're recruiting 5 to 8 kids and freshmen a class. Now it's like you're not just like you said recruiting good players. You're recruiting good players and good people, and it allows us to be really picky.
All right, my next question. You can make this as short as you want it, because we could probably talk about this topic for 4 hours.
Yeah.
What's your take on the growing influence of the transfer portal and NLI in college baseball?
It's hard. It's hard because of what I described before, because it's so fluid and it changes constantly. And you have to play the game. Like if we don't play the transfer portal game, then we're gonna get left behind. Like that's just the nature of it. I wouldn't say we necessarily like it, but it's helped us a lot, right? Some of our most productive players have come out of the transfer portal. Our left fielder last year is from Quinnipiac. He came out and he broke a program record in home runs in a season for us this past year. Would we have gotten to where we were without him or other transfer portal pieces? Probably not, right? But it's great for instances like him. Like before, Keegan would have never been able to come to Kansas State and play at Kansas State with our resources that they just don't have at Quinnipiac, which is nobody's fault. It's just they don't have the same resources. So it's great for instances like that, right? What sucks for is the high school kids. These kids get absolutely screwed, and it is what it is, because before it was you get the high school class, then you get the junior college class, and that's the only pool that we were recruiting out of. Now, this past year, for example, it was just over 6,000 kids in the transfer portal. So now you got high school class, junior college, and now there's other 6,000 other kids that they're competing with too to get into these recruiting classes. And that's where it hurts the high school kid. Now, where it helps the high school kid is if your dream is to play Division I baseball and you don't get that opportunity out of high school, say you go to play at a junior college or Division II, Division III, right? The dream doesn't have to stop just because you don't get recruited by a Division I out of high school, right? You can go play at a Division II, Division III, put up really good numbers, and then maybe still have that opportunity, right? And that's where there's the good part of it. Like I said, the bad part of it is the turnover. The high school classes are smaller. The revolving door doesn't really hurt us too much because we don't really have kids leave our program just because we have a really good spot here that people get in it and they don't really feel like they want to go anywhere else.
Why would you?
Right. Well, you say that, but
No, I get it. There's going to be that one kid a class or whatever it is. But I mean, going from Big 12 to what do you get? What's the difference, right? Like you're still playing Power 4 baseball. Like,
you say that, I don't know. It's craziness where we try to say it because when we've been through it, like we know what it's like. Like you said, Power 4 baseball is baseball at the highest level. It gives you the chance to perform at the highest level and get drafted, right? If you put up numbers. But for some reason, everyone wants to chase, one or two conferences and the grass is always greener at the other side. But at the end of the day, you put up numbers in the Big 12, you're going to be able to have the opportunity to play at the next level. And sure, the SEC has won that's 3 or 4 national championships. But honestly, the gap between Power 4 conferences is like minute. And even go to mid-major conferences. Look at Moorhead State, like we talked about before. Like there's really, really, really good Power 4 or non-Power 4 conferences that have really good players that are going to get the chance to go play professionally, but they don't get that opportunity if they don't go somewhere where they can play, if that makes sense.
well,
Well,
I
going
got
off
one
what-
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Going back to our playing day, right? The best guys played Power 4. The best of the best, right? And I can think of all the guys that we played summer ball with, right? Yourself included. But I think the mid-majors have gotten so much better because they've gotten more recruits that they never would even have touched 10 years ago.
100%. And not only has mid-major gotten better, but junior college has gotten better too.
D2, D3, everyone's gotten better, but it's like you look at D1 baseball, and again, it's spread out everywhere in the U.S., right? I think we looked it up. There's like 300 teams now, but it's these teams have gotten so much better just because of the portal. And it's like I hear coaches, Division I, Division II, Division III, whatever it is, complain about the portal, right? And it's all these things. I'm like, if you're not using it, you're going to be left behind, first of all, right? But at the same time, it's like nice to hear the guys that are like, all right, well, we still take high school kids, because there are some college guys that say, dude, I'm not going to watch a high school game. I'm going to go shop 8 kids in the portal, and that's it.
Yeah, it's tough to find the balance, but you definitely need it, in my opinion. You need those guys that are going to be in your program for 3 or 4 years, and I could keep going back to it, but know and build your culture, and then you need to go out and get your Keegan O'Connors, your other guys to help, fill immediate needs. But yeah, it's tricky playing the balancing act of how many high school kids you want, and then also transfer portal, and then still going JUCO too.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing that I was going to touch on is like you look at Texas, right? Like with Slosh Nagel going over there, everything like that. What happened to them? They were what were they, preseason number 1 or whatever? They were number 2 going in, right? They got bounced by UTSA, mid-major, right? What do? They play fast, play defense, right? The whole 9 yards. And that's the thing is like, I hope these kids understand is like, you don't have to always chase something on social media. Like, yeah, the SEC gets most of the social media because they quote unquote have the best guys, right? And like you said, Big 12 has numerous top talent. You probably have a ton of draft picks.
Mhm.
Like I just think of Witherspoon, the kid from Oklahoma. Granted, they're in the SEC now, but like there's so much talent. And like what Zach said is like D1, D2, D3 is all profiting off of it because there's so much talent. And I think it's raised the level of baseball across all divisions. Like I heard when I was going through the recruiting process that you didn't play Division I baseball, you're not that good, right? And now it's okay, you play Division II baseball, you go to a SNU or you go to a Central Missouri or you go to a Angelo State or something like that. Like you have these guys in the D3 realm. It's you go to these Endicott's, you go to these Trinity, Texases, the Chapmans, the Easterns, the things like that. Like I had the luxury of playing at Eastern and I won the national title in 2022 when we were doing the pre-ceremony thing for the World Series. I got to meet MJ Metz. That was the kid from Duke, right? The 6'7" first baseman who hit 20-something home runs in the ACC. He was playing D3 baseball in Texas, right? And that's, I think the beautiful thing of it is if you're good enough, like you've said, they will find you. They found him from a D3 school in Texas, right? And now he was playing in the ACC. He was batting 3 or 4 for Duke, who was one of the Power 4 schools of Power 4 schools, right? And I just think it's crazy how much the portal has not only helped. I'm pro portal. I've always been pro portal. I think it helps the kids a ton. I think some people may abuse it because that's just the nature of the beast, right? But I think it helps these kids get to these levels that they might not have gotten to pre-portal. And I don't think really people understand that until you sit down and have those conversations of there's so many more avenues that you can accomplish that where you touched on, like you don't get that D1 out of high school. Cool, man. Go grind at that D3 or that D2 and go get that D1 job in 2 years from now.
100%. And going back to our super regional team 2 years ago, right? Like our starting third baseman, Division III kid. Our Friday guy on that team, Division III kid. Our starting DH, SNU kid, right? Like we had, and the kid that got the last out of the regional and did some crazy backflip, Division III kid. So it's like we had a guy throwing the back end of our games D3, Friday guy D3, third base D3, DH D3 on a team that went to a super regional. Like there's a lot of really good players at all levels. That should tell you, if anything.
I think the bad rap that, and it's going to take a lot of time to change, is the guys that coach these guys at D2, D3, and not saying they claim them, right? But it's like, it's hard to fill the void as much as it is to lose them, right? Like those guys jump up to D1. Well, that's great. Well, you could have had a successful season just because you built it off your Friday guy or your 3-hitter that's your shortstop or center fielder, right? Like different teams and it varies, but I feel like there's more coaches that are getting butt hurt essentially at the lower levels of they're not wanting to do the process of like what you guys have to do to shop the portal. Again, I'll use Trinity, right? Are they flying to California to go watch a kid? Possibly because they're in the NESCAC schools because they have more funds than most T3s, but like their job's going to be a lot harder to find these kids than your job is. And yes, it might look like to a recruit on your end, like, all right, this guy's flying all over the country to come watch me play. And it like, if they're coming to watch you, essentially, if you're going to watch a guy in Connecticut, right? Like that's got to mean something to you. Like you can't just go out there and I'm just gonna play today. Like, nah, a Power 5 or Power 4 school's coming to watch you play. Like, dude, you got to leave it all on the line because otherwise he ain't coming back.
No, 100%. Don't get me wrong. Like, I understand how it's frustrating. I mean, we deal with it too, as far as kids leaving that we don't want to leave. Doesn't happen often. It's probably happened 1 or 2 times since we've been here. So I understand how get a little butthurt or just frustrated, I guess, with kids that you've invested a lot of time in, and then next thing you know, they have a good year because you helped them get to this spot and then they leave. I just think that the tricky part of it is there's two aspects to the portal, man. It's one, getting kids to the opportunity that they deserve, essentially, or have worked for, and that's a big piece. And then there's also a loyalty piece, and playing that fine line is tricky. And I think it's where the relationship between coach and player, I think, is huge. And I think the biggest part of that, and I think why people would start getting maybe a little less frustrated, at least I think I would, and I think everyone else would, is if players were a little better at communicating about, hey, look, man, like, I had a really good year. I think there's opportunity at the next level. I'm thinking about going in the portal. Here's why. And then you talk it out. Okay, we're good with it, right? But so often you'll have probably an exit meeting and it gets portrayed a different way. And then a few days later, you get blindsided. And I think that, not just saying that happens here, but I'm saying I think that's how it happens across
everywhere.
the country, and why people get pissed, because there's a lack of communication, one, and two, people are afraid
that's
of
a generational thing.
100%, and people are afraid of having hard conversations.
Because it's like, as much as we'll tell a kid to build a Twitter, right? Like, a kid's not going to send emails, and it's like, not for nothing, and it's not every kid now, but like, I remember when I had to have my first phone call with a college coach. Like, dude, I was probably shaking in my boots. Like, what is going on here, right? And it's like, now you have people like myself to help you through that, but at the same time, it's like, they don't even know what to say. They don't know what to ask. Like, if you didn't know what to ask when you were an 18-year-old kid, or 17 technically as a junior in our day, like, you were screwed. Like, you were getting, all right, can't talk on the phone, X.
Yep.
Can't send an email, X. You're done. Like, it's the thing. Again, everything is changing, right? But you still have to be able to do the basic things. It's like, oh, what should I send an email? Like, how many horror stories do you hear about of guys that are emailing you and then emailing, let's say, Ohio State? Then they sent you the email that they were trying to send to Ohio State. Like, that's the easiest way to get crossed off.
Dude, I get that on Twitter DMs. It'll be the wrong name, and because they're just copy pasting it and they forget to change the name. But yeah, that's a huge piece of advice. Is like, if you have a call set up with a college coach, and I get it, the portal might be different because everything happens. You might have been in the portal for 5 minutes, and then I call you 2 minutes after whatever, so you don't have time to do research. But as a high school kid, if you have a call set up with a coach, just do basic research before you call the coach, because there's nothing worse than calling a kid. You give them the basic rundown about what the program's like, how we run things, what Kansas State's like, all of that, and then asking if they have any questions. And it's, no, we have no questions. It's like, okay, where do we go from there, right? And not only are we trying to help you better understand maybe one of the biggest decisions of your life at this point, we're also trying to build a relationship, because again, it goes back to knowing who you're getting as a person and a player.
How many times, just real quick, how many times have you done a on-campus trip with a kid visit, and you're sitting down and you're in the office? I don't know what you guys got, but I'm guessing your dad's got a pretty big office that they bring him into. But how many times have you sat down and talked for about 30, 40 minutes, gave him the whole rundown, and you go, hey, any questions? You go, no. But the parents go, well, how's Jim going to do? And how's class going to go? And how's his schedule work? And things like that. And I think it's hilarious that the kids who are going to these 4-year schools, and it's their decision, they have zero questions lined up. And it's fine, because it's hard to think of something. You're a little bit afraid, right? You're like, okay, I'm at this school. I'm a little starstruck. I see all these nice buildings and all these nice things. And I think it's funny because the parents are just straight shooters. They're like, yeah, well, how's my son do this? And where does my son stand? And how's this work? And how's that work? And the kids are just sitting there with a blank stare. Mom, Dad, stop talking. Please stop talking. I don't want you to say anything wrong.
Right. Now, it happens. But again, like, you kind of start to figure out what's the right fit for you and what's not, because typically the kids that don't have any questions about anything typically are just wanting to see the locker or see the facility and see all the bells and whistles that, again, are great that we have them, but they don't matter when it comes to your overall development as a baseball player.
So you get to wear purple jerseys on a Friday or something like that. Like that.
Exactly.
That's what we care about now. Like, why?
Exactly. And the parents have been through it most of the time, the college experience. So I think that's why you get the questions. I just don't think a lot of times, again, high school kids, I don't think, for the most part, I'm not saying this is every high school kid, because that's not true. There's a lot of really good kids that we've recruited that do have questions, that have done research, that, are in it for the right reasons, right? But with social media, with PBR, with Perfect Game, and just basically projecting everything for these kids and getting to see locker rooms and facilities that far too often kids just don't know what they're getting into because they're making their decision on the wrong reasons.
I mean, this is just a quick one that you can answer too, but what's the best Twitter you've looked at for a recruit look like?
Honestly, so I get it. Some kids want to pop up their teammates and all that other stuff and they retweet all their stuff. But just highlights of not only offensively but defensively. Just videos, whether it's if you're an infielder, like if I scroll through your Twitter, I want to be able to see you take young balls. Just don't want to see that double I hit on a whatever on a Saturday at some random back high school field. Like I want to see swing, preferably from the open side, but really you're just looking for bat speed. And then defensive highlights. And then if possible from a pitching standpoint, TrackMan is so big. If you can just provide TrackMan, because sometimes you don't even have to go necessarily see a kid because you can get a track record call from a coach as far as strikes. And then if you see the numbers, those are the numbers. I know it's not possible all the time, but if you can somehow get TrackMan numbers, it just makes our process so much easier, whether that's portal or high school. But again, just you can't put enough of your own video on Twitter. It starts to get tricky when they start retweeting all of their teammates because sometimes there's not even names in the caption and it just gets diluted.
I like that. I mean, I've heard coaches say that they like what we'll call team guys, essentially, right? Where it's like, all right, say that you're the number one pitcher on your summer team committed to Rutgers or Duke or Nichols College, right? Whatever. But it's like some coaches will be like, I want team guys too, because they don't want it to be I. And I think that, especially in today's world, no coach wants I. Yeah, they want you to do that when you're playing the position, but like when you're in a team setting, you're in a team setting.
Yeah, 100%. It's just those kids that are uncommitted when they're retweeting every single tweet that their teammates. It's like, all right, I just want to see the videos of you, right? And I'm sure your teammate's great too, but like, I want to see
him.
Right.
Just another thing I would say from my point of view, I don't think tagging every coach from A to Z, that's not a good look either.
No,
Sure, if you were talking to a coach and he was like, hey, like, let me know when you post something, no problem in that. Posting coach from Alabama, Coach Vaughn, to the coach of whatever, right? Wisconsin or however, Wyoming, whatever you want. I don't think it's a good look when you got 73 people tagged in one post and then you go to the comments and there's 150 more people tagged.
To be honest with you, the kids that do that probably aren't good enough to go to the schools they're tagging. And I understand, like, say we have a camp and they want to tweet out, had a great time at this camp, thanks, whatever my handle is. Like, that's fine. Like, I understand that 100%. But the mass tag is, I don't know, it's not effective, I don't think.
It's one of these. It's a big X.
Yeah.
It's a big cross off. It's not a circle.
Yeah.
Moving on into development. Can you give us what a day in the life of a Kansas State baseball player looks like?
Yep. So we're lucky enough to have our own weight room. So we lift 4 days a week in the fall. So depending on class schedules, guys are usually mixed up into 3 different weightlifting groups. It's not position based. It's not class based. Those groups. It's all basically to work around class schedules. The weightlifting program is a base program, but then based off of when guys get here, they get tested for mobility, stability, and strength stuff. And based off of deficiencies or efficiencies in those tests, they're going to have auxiliary lifts that go off of the base program. Typically, we have like a 8 a.m. group, and then we'll have like a 10:30 and like an 11:30 group. We don't do the 6 a.m. lift. We don't have to because we're the only one that uses our weight room. But we think sleep is just as important as a practice, as a lift, as nutrition. So we don't wake them up and do the 5, 6 a.m. lift. So they'll lift, go into class. Breakfast we have provided at our football stadium. It's student athletes only. So it's fueled that way. They get breakfast 6 days a week, and then they'll get dinner the same. But it's fueled to fuel a student athlete, right? It's not your typical cafeteria crap where there's a lot of fried food and maybe other stuff that doesn't do us any good. So we'll have breakfast there whenever it works with their lift. Typically we have 1:45 early work, where it's usually just like an extra BP session, or I'll pull some infielders on the side and do extra drill work with them.
Most fun part of practice.
Oh yeah, 1:45 early work, baby.
Oh yeah.
We have a fuel station in underneath. It's like a kitchen area that, again, it's fueled by our nutritionist and our strength coach. So it's protein shakes, anti-inflammatory stuff, pre-made sandwiches, loaves of bread where you can make your peanut butter and jellies, granola bars, goldfish, name it, it's in there. And so those guys usually will, after lift, before early work, will go in that little fuel station and do a lunch or some sort of protein shake to supplement their lift. Get into early work at 1:45, 2:30 practice. We only practice 5 days a week. We don't practice on the weekends. We think it's important for guys to be student athletes, not just athletes, right? They got to have the student life too and enjoy college and go to the football games and be a part of the community, right? So I think we're probably one of the only programs that does that, but we don't practice on the weekends. And
That's cool.
typically, yeah, I know, right?
Well, you get to watch Avery Johnson play on Saturdays. I'd want to do that too.
Exactly. So our guys get to be immersed in the college environment and get to be a part of the community and be students, right? Not just be an athlete that is consumed with just going to the field every single day and that's their life, right? So
I'm sure you do
do
have
that.
guys that do that though.
we have a couple guys. We actually, because we usually host recruits on those weekends, and if we see them in there hitting, like typically it's like, all right, go get your stuff done, but it's like, hey, dude, go to the tailgate with your teammates. Like, go hang out with those guys because that stuff it matters, right? Like, and you guys know, you don't sit here and talk about what happened on a Tuesday game against Wichita State or whatever. No, you're talking about what you guys did off the field in the locker room and stuff that happened away from baseball. And that's how we build our culture. There's so many more important things that help us get us to be a better baseball team that doesn't involve lifting in practice. And I think we really lean into that, for good or for bad. I don't know. We just think that's really important.
Yeah, we just did a thing for top 3 things 27 should be doing. Like, it just started 11 days ago for them. But my number 2 thing was crushing the weight room.
Yeah.
You're playing against 23, 24-year-olds, right? Hopefully the COVID thing ends. But you're at a significant disadvantage going into school as a freshman. And like you said, there's only 4 to 5 guys. If you're not up to par strength-wise, you're going to get left behind. And you talked about it. You do a whole lot of weight training, right? And it happens during the fall, during the winter, and even in the season. Sometimes you'll get a ton of those lifts in, even on those games days you don't have games, or even if you have game days, you'll have those pitchers lifting post game, things like that. And I think it's good to hammer home for these kids that it's never a bad thing to start strength training early, because you need to be up to par with some of these kids if you want to make an impact on your early years. And you're not just throwing away your early years being a cheerleader on the bench.
100%. And, just the emphasis we put on it. For example, every preseason meeting, my dad always addresses the team and says, listen, I want to be the Kansas State weightlifting team that also plays baseball. And that's our motto in the whole fall is we get after it 4 days a week. Like you said, in season, it turns down to 3 where it's more of a maintain sort of thing. But it's every second our guys are in the weight room, it's treated just as important as a practice, because not only are you getting better in the weight room and you're strengthening you as a baseball player, but it's also so important for injury prevention. Because if you're weak in certain areas, your body's just not going to hold up. I mean, the season's a grind, right? Fall ball is a grind. You guys know what it is. It's a grind. Maybe fall ball might be more of a grind than the actual season, right? So if you're not prepared physically enough and not doing the right things nutritionally or in the weight room or getting enough sleep, your body is going to break down and you're going to get hurt. And that's why it's so important to us, the sleep, the nutrition, the weightlifting, because it's going to get you better, but it's going to keep you on the field as well.
If you could describe the culture of your program in 1 or 2 words, what would it be?
It's very much, I would say, open door, open communication, where everybody from the first player on our roster to now the 34th knows exactly where they stand on our team, what they need to do to get better, gets coached the exact same way, and feels like they're comfortable enough to come in and talk to any coach on the staff, whether it's from my dad, who's the head coach, to me, who's the third assistant, to our hitting coach, to our pitching coach. Everybody feels comfortable enough to where they can go in and have a conversation. Hey, what do I need to do to get on the field to play more? What do I need to do to get more innings? Like that sort of thing. And I think that sort of open communication, especially nowadays, is so important.
I agree there. I mean, I think it's kind of always been like that, but I like I explained to kids that I, 1, work with, and 2, that I coach and travel baseball. Back in our day of playing, right, everyone wanted that yes coach. Like, it was, all right, yes coach. Now it's like coaches, and I'm assuming your dad had to adapt to it, but like now we're in the world of the coach wants, all right, tell me what you're feeling. Because if you're saying yes coach and you're looking at the kid next to you after we break the huddle, you have no idea what we're talking about.
Exactly.
And it's just like, what are we doing here? Because then we're going to run through bunt defense for the next 2 hours because you don't know what you're doing.
And that's the biggest thing that we like from guys in our program is, hey, maybe ask why we're doing this, or ask, hey, like, especially kids that come from different places, like we don't have egos. Like we're always listening to better ways to do things. It's like, hey, like, I don't know, I feel like I made a couple errors the last couple days. I did this drill at this school, or I did this in high school that it made me feel better and it got me right, like out of a rut. Then we'll do that. But if you're sitting there, like you said, and just complying to everything that's being told, we're not going to get better. The player's not going to get better. So we're always looking for different ways to do things. And we love when kids ask why we're doing a certain thing, because that's only going to help them learn the game more when we can explain why we're doing these drills.
And I think it's also good because you can get a sense that, hey, either he's doing outside information stuff, looking at like your drive lines or your bio labs, your things like that, and finding out maybe some different things that you guys can talk about. Because I feel like you don't want to, like I said before, you don't want to beat a dead horse, right? You don't want to just be the one, and then they take 25 swings and they got nothing out of it, and you're just like, hey, did you learn anything today? And they're like, yeah, coach, great day, and just walk away, and then they go to class or something like that. Like, I think it's great to hear an open door thing, because I feel like some kids are, I know I was scared to say anything in the huddle because I didn't want to be the one to make our team run because I questioned our coach or something like that. But if you have that open door policy, like you said, where, hey, you might not like a drill and like something you might want to tweak, and you guys are open about that, that's the best way to get you into your best possible situation. I think we're all human and we're all different. Like, you can't take one kid off the street and one kid that's been doing it for 15 years and you can't teach them the same things. Everybody's different. You got the submarine guys or the guys that are over the top. And I think with the growing evolution of technology and the biokinetics and things like that, there's so many different ways to do things. And I think if kids are open to those, not only you sharing information, but then them reciprocating it and bringing in new information that you might not have come across, that they said, oh, the Red Sox hitting coach has been talking about this, or the AA coordinator for Texas has been talking about this. What do you think about that? I think good conversation not only benefits it, and it's not a detriment to a kid speaking up and asking questions or adding things to the conversation that he might keep to himself because he's petrified coach is going to yell at me, or coach is going to make me run, or we're going to have to drop and give him 15 push-ups because I questioned the coach.
No, 100%. And that's, again, a lot of that, kids have to be comfortable to speak up. Like you said, like maybe sometimes you were in a spot where you were comfortable to speak up and say something, where I think we provide an environment to where kids are able to do that, whether they're the 18-year-old freshman or they're the 24-year-old transfer portal guy that's on his 6th year that just came in for the first time. It's so important with guys coming from different places to understand that they have a voice not just because it's their first year in the program, but because that's the environment that they're in now. And they don't have to be a 4-year voted on captain to be able to speak up and say something. It can be the 18-year-old freshman if he wants to talk about to his peers or to our coaching staff about holding somebody accountable. They understand that they have that voice too. And I think that all goes into, again, I keep coming back to it, but like the culture that we've been able to build. And like we always say, the locker room is best run when we don't have to run any part of it. It runs itself. And it doesn't run itself unless everybody feels like they have a voice and can hold each other accountable, no matter first year, 4th year in the program.
Yeah, if your dad's the last one to hear about things, that's probably a good thing. It means it made its way up the food chain.
Yeah, but that dude hears everything. Like, it's unbelievable. He knows everything about everything, whether he was told it or not. Like, it's unbelievable. You can't. That's what I always tell the guys. Is like, because they'll come to me if something happened, and I'll be like, listen, he's gonna find out about it. You just have to go and tell him, because if he finds out about it not from you, then there's gonna be issues.
That's funny because I think about when I played, I was always the person that like would ask the question. And it's like back when we played, you were uncoachable if you asked those questions, right? And now you live in this generation of like, if I'm teaching a kid, I want him to ask me every question under the sun until he gets it. Because then when he gets to you, he doesn't have to ask anything because he's already been through it. Yes, obviously your coaching style is different than mine, right? Every coach is different. But then he's going to be like, all right, well, Coach Tower taught me that. So I'm comfortable with what you have taught me.
No, definitely. And it shows when kids ask questions, it shows they're engaged, right? It shows they care about it because they want to get better. When a kid's just saying yes, 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 and not building off of it, It's like, is he, one, does he care about it? One, but two, is he even retaining what I'm telling him? Right? When he asks questions that is building off of what you're saying, it shows that he's listening to you and then like expanding off of it, however his brain works to process that information.
And then I think the cool thing is, as being a coach, like when you see those kids, like you were talking about that 18-year-old freshman, or those kids that you can just tell they're the keep to themselves thing, but they step up in that weird practice in April, right before the conference tournament or something like that. And you're like, it's a small victory. We got this kid to where he needs to be. And I think it's beautiful because some kids might think coaches are out to get them, right? They think, coach hates me. Coach has it out for me. 9 times out of 10, if you're a good kid, you could be the worst kid on the team or the best kid on the team. But if you're a good kid, they're looking out for your best interests. And if you to grow as an individual, I know when I was at Yale and then this past 2 years when I was at Mitchell, we always talked about when we get you for 4 years, if we're lucky enough to get you guys for 4 years, if we get you out of here and you're a better person than you were before, we did our job. That's all we care about. If you progress as a baseball player, that's awesome. And like, that's the things these kids need to start asking is when you're in those on-campus visits is how can you not only help me on the field, but off the field? And I think it's the small victory as a coach, because winning the game is obviously great, but if you can make someone, you could help them set themselves up for life or help them better themselves that those 4 years you got with them, if you're lucky enough to get 4 years with the portal and everything like that, those are the small victories that we like to get as coaches.
No, definitely. And again, it all circles back to making your decision based off of people and the environment and not the superficial crap, right? Because again, if you're a bad fit for the environment that you're going into, it's going to be a miserable experience for you and the coaches and everybody involved, right? So that's why those questions need to be directed towards the environment and the people and not so much what color lights are in the locker room.
All right, I got 2 more questions for you, and then you can go on with your daily life.
Going Royals game tonight.
Royals,
What do we got? What's the matchup?
I don't know tonight specifically, but my buddy, my college roommate, is pitching tomorrow for the Nationals. So we're just going to go tonight because they play at 1 the next day. So we're just going to go tonight, my wife and I, and then go to the game, spend the night, and then just wake up and watch him pitch tomorrow.
You got to room with Savali, is that, or however you say it?
Cavalli pitched last night. Tomorrow is Jake Irvin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Both of them were my college teammates, and now they're throwing like every other day for the Nationals. It's crazy.
Did not know Irvin was an Oklahoma guy. That makes sense.
Irvin, he's one of my closest buddies. Like he was in my wedding. Like he's the man.
All right, moving on to the last 2 questions. One of them is, you guys host a showcase camp in the fall, and what does that kind of look like for you guys?
So we do one in the fall, like a showcase, and then we do one over winter break, where it's the winter break one split up into, there's like a pitching and catching aspect, and then it goes into the hitting, and then it goes into the infielding. That's in the winter. The one in the fall is just like your typical showcase, 60 ground balls, whatever. But then I think we get more out of it because we get into a scrimmage, and we do the scrimmage, like say we have 6 scripted innings for arms. We'll then do like 6 or 7 machine scripted innings. So you're not just going out there and can walk 3 times, and that's their only evaluation of you. So we're going to play basically half the time will be off of arms, and then half the time will be off of machine. And it's higher rep, fast pace, and you don't have to worry about coming here and your 3 at-bats were walks, right? So that's what that kind of looks like. We do a lot of team camps where we'll bring on kind of teams in the area, local travel teams, even up into Wisconsin. We've had the Wisconsin hitters come down. We've had California teams come out, but that's run way differently. That's run as a practice. We basically run them through what we would do as a practice. We split up positionally and go through drill work. We do machine scrimmage, like I said. We do cuts and relays and pop-up communication instead of like the showcase thing. And then at the end, we tour the facility and then bring them into like our locker room or meeting room and have a recruiting talk and be completely honest with them. We'll have the parents there. We'll tell them about what the new environment looks like with the portal and the roster cuts, and we tell them the truth. And then we open up for a Q&A, and parents can ask. There's no question that they can't ask. And we just basically try to inform as many people as we can about what's going on and what they should be looking for and what they should be asking. And that usually goes for like an hour, hour and a half, to be honest with you. But it's worth every second, because the more people we can inform about everything, then I think it's going to lead to, it can only help us and them. So that's kind of why we do that.
I think it's cool just to talk about like how different schools break up their camps, right? Like out here now team camps are essentially like Southern Connecticut runs a great one. You get like 30 schools over 2 days, do a showcase before, you play a game one day, play a game the other day. And then like this weekend, my team's going to Eastern Mitchell team camp. You play 2 games on Saturday at one venue and 2 games on Sunday at the other venue. So it's like I think they're growing and they're getting better, but I think the biggest part with that is like keeping it like, all right, if you're gonna do these things, there actually has to be coaches there. And I think a lot of what I've talked about too with recruits in the past is like just because it says their name on their thing, that doesn't mean that school's gonna show up. I hate to say it, but it's with the portal and everything going on, like they might need one more guy in their 26 class, and that might be the last day he's pitching for the summer, and he has to go. Or that might be a 2026 you just found out about and you want to sign him in the fall, and it could be a dead period in a week. Like there's so many different ways to go about it. And it's kids will always say, what's the best answer to get in front of schools? In my personal opinion, there isn't one. But if you can go where they are, you're going to get seen. And yes, you got to pay for showcases. But like I said on a clip the other day, it was if a showcase is $115, and you're there for 8 hours, it's $10. Let's call it $10 an hour. That's lower than minimum wage that a coach is getting paid to watch you play or possibly even have a chance to play at their school.
Yeah, there's no right answer, I guess, like you said.
I don't think there'll ever be.
No, and honestly, one of the biggest avenues we use, and you hinted on it earlier, but we do so much recruiting, and you see so many kids on Twitter. And I've even I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I've messed with my algorithm to where I'll click on kids and let the loop run over and over and over again. So now basically my feed is high school kids from certain showcases, commitment posts, decommitment posts, and transfer portal posts. That's how I get a lot of my stuff, to be honest with you, and find out about a lot of kids. And it can't hurt to go to showcases, like you said, to get in front of coaches, as long as you know they're going to be there. But the Twitter thing and cleaning up and having a good Twitter, it sounds crazy. And I would give anything to delete the app from my phone and never use it again. But it's how I see kids. It's how we communicate with kids, because if they don't have their phone number in their bio, you're DMing them. It's probably 75% of how we do recruiting. Communication in the portal, finding out about kids in the portal that we wouldn't have seen before. And again, I don't know if it's probably psychopathic, but I've made my algorithm to where that's pretty much all I see on my feed. So it's able to see what I want and find kids I never would have found before.
I'm assuming you're probably not the only one, right? You've got so many psychos in your line of business that are doing things like that. So I can only imagine people, you got the coaches that have their personal Twitter, and then you have the ones that make their own coach Twitters. So you might be getting the best of both worlds. You might be crushing 2 Twitter accounts at once or 2 Instagrams at once just to see some kids, like you were saying. How the portal works is it's crazy. 3 minutes into the portal, you could get an email from Alabama, and 4 minutes after that, you get one from Texas or from you guys or anything like that. And if you don't act quick, you're screwed. It's just how fast the game's changed.
It is. It's nuts. I only have one Twitter because one's enough for me. I don't know. I would prefer not to have any of it.
Kind of off topic, but I've heard college coaches that have burner accounts that are made up names that follow kids just to check in on them, which is pretty crazy to think about. But then it's you want to see if they're posting the right things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, besides seeing kids and then communicating with them, I don't know.
Do you remember in our day when they used to care about what you posted?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's gone so far off the rails now to where it's I don't know, man. It's
way
madness.
Different. All right. Last question is, are you still currently looking for any 2026s, and what positions are you looking for in your 2027 class?
Yes, and everything. Honestly, we've slowed everything down from a high school standpoint. For example, we have 4 kids in our 26 class right now, as of today. We have 26 on campus. The kid I was talking about 2 days ago. We don't have it. So it's not saying we're not going to go out and try to sign 5 to 8, or maybe depending on what we think our roster for is going to be. But we've just taken it really, really slow because we've anticipated this roster cut for the last year and a half, even though it wasn't really official until early June. But if you start looking around and you start doing the math and you look at the 34 roster cut, you look at what some schools are bringing in for their 26 and 27 class, you look at what they're bringing in the portal, the numbers don't add up to 34. I'll just put it that. And with that, we think there's going to be a lot of kids that are going to get last second dumped, which is a reality. It sucks. It's terrible to do that for the kids because they wait until the last second before kids get dumped. And we want to make sure we have space to take those kids on if we really liked them in high school and they just didn't choose Kansas State out of high school. We've had a ton of success with that. It's a kind of a little bit of a scary approach to things because you look at it and you're like, well, it's these kids, these 26ers are going to be seniors and we have 3 of them. But it's worked out for us and we're able to get a lot of really good players that, again, just weren't in the cards as far as the math goes for the 34 thing. I mean, it's all you got to do is look at perfect game. You don't need to have an account. You just look at college commitments and you start to see, well, all right, there's 17 26s in this class and they just signed 18 out of the portal. Okay, so it's 17, 18. Now we're at 35, but then they still are returning kids. It doesn't make sense, right? It's a big part of the research high school kids need to do because it's happening far too often, especially at our level, and it ruins kids' careers because they get dumped a month or less than a month before school starts, and they're set to either try to find another spot or go to a junior college. And it's not a one-off case. Like I said, it's happening a lot, especially with the 34. So it's long-winded answer to your question. We kind of we play the waiting game and we wait. And obviously we're going to get involved with kids that we really like. And if they don't say yes, then okay, we'll still follow you. But we're not going to go get involved with kids we don't think about just because our initial crop didn't say yes, essentially.
I think, again, we're out where you are. JUCO baseball, it's okay to go play there, right?
100%.
But Northeast, like if you take Mass, Connecticut, and Rhode Island by the last 10 years, I'd love to see like a comparison chart of how many kids went to play JUCO baseball.
I know it's
because we're in the generation of that's not good enough. And now,
right.
And I think that people, especially in the Northeast, are going to start to understand, like, if you want a chance at this, it's got to be good enough. Because those guys that were fringe D3 guys before are JUCO guys. Those guys that were fringe D2 guys are now D3 guys. Those guys that were fringe D1 guys that were a favor for somebody are now D2 guys. Those guys that were mid-major guys, who knows where they end up, because they could go D2, D3, JUCO, or they could go up, whatever, have a good season. And now those guys that are Power 4 guys that are going to get cut, some will go D1, some will go D2, some will go D3. Some can go JUCO depending on their years, right? But it is going to be a disaster.
Especially, again, telling everyone to go from 40 to 34 while allowing unlimited amount of transfers and now giving extra years to these junior college kids because of the Diego Pavia thing. It's like it's COVID essentially to an extent all over again with 6 less roster spots. And at least in COVID, they gave you unlimited the first 2 years. Now they're giving every single kid that's played junior college, for the most part, 1 more year and then cutting all rosters by 6.
I heard within a certain amount of time that everyone is going to get 5 years.
That's on the table. They actually brought that on the table last fall.
Yeah.
It fell through. I guess it's gaining traction, to be honest with you. I don't even know anymore because all this stuff changes. Like now the whole DSA thing, designated as a student athlete, so you can DSA kids, and essentially it's a new window for a portal. Those kids don't count towards your 34, so you can have, like, for example, we'll have 39 in our opening day roster, but only 32 count against our 34. So it's the whole thing's ever changing and it's madness and it's just, I don't know. You got to play the game though. You can sit here and yell at the clouds all you want about it, but we're a part of it and you got to change and you got to adapt and you got to play the game, or else what the normal cliche is, adapt or die. Like it's adapt or get fired. And so you got to play the game.
I was going to have was I wrote down, how is the changing of conference affecting the sport? I can only imagine all the other things that you just touched on that just make a coach's job that much harder. And I think another thing I was saying with the 27s, like school's right around the corner, right? You guys start probably the first week of September, or you guys late August? Yeah, so you guys are 2 weeks away from starting school. So like if a coach doesn't reach out to you, it's probably because he's doing so many other different things and you're getting pulled in so many different directions. Like you said, like you got a wife, you're going to a baseball game, like you're enjoying just MLB baseball because your teammate is pitching, right? Like there's the difference of a coach doing his job, and then there's the coach, the human. And I think it's hard for the kids to understand coach the human happens more than you would think. Like their job isn't 20 their job's 24/7, but sometimes they want to just be a regular individual. And so if that coach doesn't answer you, don't have to heckle them 350 times within a week to get an answer or a response.
So I think going off of what you said too is or not even what you said, but what we were talking about, if they go to 5 years, it'll get rid of like the prep school thing. Like kids can go and get college credits at a junior college or a D3 or really anything. And they'll be able to have college credits and not have to pay $50,000+ to do a prep year. Let's say you got hurt and a guy was high on you at a D3 school. You'll have the option now to go to that school, get in a college setting, and kind of understand like what it takes to be a college baseball player while getting credits towards your degree. And it'll also set up kids to get that master's and have another year where those kids, let's just say during COVID, were lucky enough to get a master's and possibly have a chance to get it for free and play at these schools that they never thought they would have the chance to achieve because of the COVID years.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to actually go through. Obviously, it's on the table and it's being talked about a lot, but it would create a lot of change. And like you said, the prep schools would get really affected. The redshirt situations would fully change. I'm sure you could still get waivers for medical red shirts, I would guess, but still, like the 5 year clock would change a lot, and it would essentially make it COVID all over again, but with roster restrictions. And I don't know if that's something the NCAA wants to deal with. I know it would be a nightmare for us to deal with just because it's a lot of change. But I think the NCAA is also at a point where they're dealing with so much change and so many lawsuits to where I think you're going to see there's been so much change that I think it's going to start to taper off a little bit, in my opinion. I could be completely wrong, just because they're trying to almost undo basically what they started by opening Pandora's box with unlimited transfers and unlimited NIL with no cap space. You can see them slowly starting to like restrict it. And I think they're tired of lawsuits. They realize that it was madness that happened. And I think that they're going to try to stop as much. They're going to try to keep continuing to have change, if that makes sense, just to try to limit the lawsuits and honestly just the headache that it's caused them and pretty much everybody involved.
It's just they have to set a standard again.
Right.
And
And
if they find an even ground, that's fine. I think we've gone through it so long that people were so upset that a college, whether it was a D1 or a D3, was essentially making money off of you, right? And now we're in the world of, I think kids would be fine if you found a standard. Like essentially, I don't know if it's passed yet but essentially schools can pay athletes now, right?
yeah, so all that went down on June like 6th or 7th, where the House settlement got passed to where it essentially what it looks like is NIL now is capped per institution. So every athletic department this year gets a cap of $20.1 million is essentially the number. Then it's up to that specific institution to divvy it up however they want through revenue sharing. Where the lawsuits come with that is then you run into Title IX. If you actually do the rev share stuff based off of what sports and programs are bringing in the most money, a lot of times you run into Title IX issues. And if you Title IX it, then the people that are then, if you went off of Title IX and divvied it up evenly, then now the high revenue sharing sports, they're going to bring in the lawsuits. So essentially you get $20.1 million to divvy up however you want to every sport at your institution. And that's just NIL money straight out of the school's pocket. I would say there's probably 5% of schools in Division One, maybe, that are going to get to that $20.1 million because now you have to, that's all separate funding. It's all separate donors that you didn't have. So not everyone's going to get to that 20.1. You then have to figure out what percent goes to each sport based off of if you get to the 20. That's looking a lot like 75% football, 10 to 15 men's basketball, about 5 to 8 women's basketball, depending on the institution. A lot of schools have, more sports than others. And some schools like don't have football, so they can dish out the money certain directions, but that's kind of how that all goes now. And like to your point, it goes right out of the school fund, so they're directly paying the players from that capped amount of money. And then the players can then get their third party NIL deals on top of it, but anything over $599 gets vetted through the extension of compliance. And essentially all they're looking for is, it's crazy to say this, but they're trying to prevent pay for play. So they're saying, okay, if you want to do this commercial appearance, it actually has to be worth the amount of money they're giving you. You're not just getting $500,000 from a donor to go sign 6 autographs, right? So that is a crazy amount of gray area as well, because it goes into, if I'm gonna pay you $1,000 to post on your social media my company once a week. Well, then it goes into what is his social media worth or her social media worth based off of the amount of followers, based off of their following, and then it's up to this third party to determine that as well, which is craziness. It's just nuts.
I mean, it's essentially being a pro without being a pro.
Right. And
But it's always been that way. And it's the more and more that NLI has become a thing, right? And again, I think it's good. I think they just let it free reign, because now there's like a thing that you and I could go back against our name and image back when we played, right? I could care less about that. But it's like, how many people, I mean, look at all the football scandals, right? Of like Johnny Manziel signed autographs. And it's just like, what are you going to tell a kid that they're just throwing all this money at them that they can't do it?
Mhm.
And it was, kids need money to survive. People need money to survive. You're going to these institutions, and a lot of these kids back in the day were going to, yes, let's say you play football, right? And you were on a full ride. Well, that's great. How are you going to eat? How are you going to put gas in your car? How are you going to live? How are you, like, all these things? And it was like, all right, it's great. This kid goes to school for free. All right. How's he going to live on top of that? The kid's from out up in Canada, and he's going to, let's just say, Texas Tech. How's he going to fly home for every holiday? Like, there's things that people don't really realize. And it was, once they threw this fuel in the fire of everyone can get paid, like, it was great, because now there's unlimited NLI. And
I
then
think it was
anyone,
like, what was it, Shabazz Napier at UConn, the bagel incident? Like, he couldn't eat because he wasn't on scholarship. And like, there's, like you said, there's so much gray area. It's like, you talk about Reggie Bush, like when his parents moved to Southern Cal. He just wanted to play football, right? Granted, they bought his mom a house, but like Johnny Manziel, he's the biggest name in football, right? Hanging out with Drake, things like that. When Eric Dickerson was at SMU, he was the hottest thing since sliced bread. Like, it's such a never ending landscape. Like, you take Jeremiah Smith, he's the most transcended college football athlete we've had in a really, really long time, right? And even Cooper Flagg last year, like, they're going to these prestigious schools, great, paying nothing, a whole 9 yards, but what they bring to your school, granted the shoe is going to be packed and Cameron Indoor is going to be packed, but there's so many people that they bring to the table that who didn't like the sport, but because I saw Jeremiah Smith on TikTok, I want to be like that guy. Or, hey mom, can I go buy his jersey in the college store? But they used to not be able to sell the college jersey because of the revenue share thing. So like, it's just a never ending thing. And obviously you explained it very well. There's a lot of things that I learned that I didn't know about that just got passed in June. So
Yep.
I think it's a never ending landscape, and there's really no right answer.
I think, don't get me wrong, like, I obviously think kids should be paid what they're worth. Like, absolutely, like you said, they're away from home from the first time. They need to be able to live, right? Especially if they're bringing in a lot of attention to the university, which is great. But essentially, they're now professional athletes that go to school, right? And I think the only way to kind of help it is, if we're doing professional athletes, I think we got to sign contracts, right? And if I think that's not just going to benefit us, the kids, I think it's going to benefit smaller schools or mid majors or D2, D3s, because if they sign a contract for an agreement, maybe they sign a 2-year contract and they say, look, 2-year contract worth this amount of dollars. But then after the 2-year contract, you can either re-sign with us or go get in the portal and test the waters and go sign somewhere else and see if you can get a different contract.
I'll think about it, there too. You can make it 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, or like for
Exactly.
us, like baseball's or the gray area would become in baseball though is you could be a sophomore, either red shirt, or you could have done a prep year, and you could be 21, right, and get drafted. So that's
So
where it would be a gray area.
I think the gray area is if you go to the draft, everything goes void. If both parties agree to void the remaining years on the contract, they can do that, but it has to be both parties. That way, that would eliminate over recruiting, because now people are bound by contracts and they can't just tell a kid to go get in the portal because they have 2 more years left on the contract. Like, you're bound by it. That's my opinion. Again, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. I don't know if that would help, but
It would help the portal, I think, for sure.
yes.
I don't know if it would help the payment of players wise, but
Probably
I
not.
think I think really just understanding all of this though is going to go towards the portal. I think like you said the best it's like the Wild West, right? So it's like now what in June you get like what was the new thing they just passed where you can get after the portal date you get like one of them or something?
Yeah, so post portal date, there's like a week where you can DSA, designated student is what it's called. You can basically DSA kids, and they go into this specific portal under the tag designated student athlete. And if I were to go, say we went and got two of them right now, they don't count towards our roster limit. And say we DSA'd five of them, right? They don't count against us, but they're essentially fair game for anybody else to come get because it incentivizes them to take DSAs because it doesn't count against the roster limit. But we can then, if we wanted to DSA every single kid on our roster, we could, and they would not count against us in the season. But those kids can't be on athletic scholarship. They can only be paid through the revenue sharing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So again, they're trying to fix it. And the DSA thing is good in a sense because it gets these kids that get dumped super late and gives them opportunity to go elsewhere, and it incentivizes other schools to take them because it doesn't count against their 34. So that is, I think, one good thing. The problem with it is it's not going to stop schools from bringing in 50 kids in the fall. So, but that's the thing that just happened after the House settlement because the judge is worried that because she's cut it to 34, she's worried about ruining opportunities for student athletes, not just in baseball, but all across athletics. So then she's trying to backtrack and do the DSA thing. And it's just the biggest issue, to be completely honest with you, is people that are making these decisions never played college athletics.
There it is.
Yeah. You
That
said it,
is
not me.
yeah, it's true, but that's the problem.
Yeah, I think the COVID thing, I mean, I lucked out. I had 2 more years when I graduated. I could have played another year. I would have been 23, but I think the COVID thing has just screwed everything up. And granted, it happened. It was a pandemic. There was nothing anyone could do, but it's just like you're giving it's the Wild West with no rules, is what NCAA sports, I think, in my opinion, has become. I think going back to your contract thing, I think the last thing I'll say about it is like you see it a lot with football and you see it a lot with basketball is these people get they get a lot of money, right? They're not bound to the school. Say I commit to K-State football. I'm the number one recruit in the country. I'm gone.
Mhm.
I'm gone after the season, but they
Mhm.
still owe me the money. Right. And I think like I liked your point where like it should be voided. I've always been a big proponent of that. Like you got to hold up your end of the bargain because if the coach is instilling the trust to bring you into the school, he's holding up his end of the bargain. Granted, if there's something that happened and he just didn't like you or something like that, sure, maybe you could go file a case or something like that. But I think kids are just leaving these schools like the kid from Auburn. He's on his seventh school in 7 years or something like that. Like, when's there going to be a rule? Like, I remember when Zach was leaving his school, the only thing he could do is go to D2 because at D1 he wasn't allowed to leave. Like, you weren't allowed to go from D1 to D1 without sitting out. Now it's a playground that everybody gets to play on, and there's no rules on it.
Yep. And if you're the kid, I mean, like obviously loyalty is a big thing, but what's stopping from a high end kid from testing the waters every year to make it a lot of money, especially if you're not really a pro guy and you got to make your money in college? Like it incentivizes disloyalty, if that makes sense. And again, you can't blame the kid for trying to make a lot of money either, but it's also,
Well, you can't blame a kid that's come from nothing. Like, think of how many of these kids have come from nothing that are getting full scholarships because they've essentially stayed off the streets if they live in Chicago, right? To just get by their high school years to end up getting a full ride to play football at Alabama. Like, I feel like there's so many success stories, right? But there's success stories where their family came from nothing, they have nothing, and then you put them in not this rich like scenery, but like they don't have to pay for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, right? School is free. Extracurricular activities at the team dub is paid for. Their housing's paid for. Like, all right, now they're putting their body on the line for everything that they've tried to accomplish their whole life to stay out of trouble, to make nothing out of it. Like that doesn't work. And again, our sport's a little bit different. Yes, they're putting their body on the line, but like it's not 125 kids on a Division I football team that's playing every Saturday that's selling out 80,000 to 100,000 in a stadium.
and selling hundreds of jerseys too. Yeah. It's like I said, they kids absolutely deserve to be paid. In my opinion, there needs to be some sort of change with what's kind of going on. I think just because it's like you had alluded to. It's turned into the Wild West, and I think it in the long run, worst comes to worst, I think kids need to be educated too, because a lot of times these kids are signing these deals and they don't realize that they're getting taxed on it too, and then they come spend they're spending the money and don't realize they have to pay taxes. It turned into a whole thing where I think it should be mandatory for every athletic department, at the bare minimum, to have classes or educational services that are mandatory for kids to be able to handle the money that we are going to give them. I just think it's only going to help kids in the long run if we do that.
I mean, a benefit to every institution would be hire a person that is taught every student athlete and make it a 3-credit course class, right? So it counts towards their major if you're an athlete or whatever. If you want to be a normal student, you can take it too, because maybe that's a field you want to get into. But create that class and give that option to people of like, this is what, all right, after the $5.95, you're paying taxes on it. Because then you're educating, and then 2, you're making it where you can promote yourself and do it the right way.
And that class not only teaches them how to manage the money the correct way, how to pay taxes, how to promote themselves, like you said, on social media, how to venture out and try to get different NIL deals to different brands. It can only help both parties. And I think it would help these kids make more responsible decisions, and instead of just trying to get up and maybe try to leave every year.
One thing for me, I was going to talk about the draft process a little bit. How have you seen in your coaching realm compared to when you were playing? What's it like where that guy might not go in the draft because he might go to another school, or he might get some money to stay back, and maybe that regional team turns into an Omaha team?
It's been great for college baseball. College baseball has gotten significantly better because you can essentially pay kids to come back instead of having them go to the draft. The biggest difference, I think, is not just that, but it's basically been cut in half since we played. The draft has. It's only 20 rounds now. Again, great for college baseball. I don't know. I think it's great because kids, instead of getting signed in the 35th round and just go because they're afraid their dream of college baseball might not be there, or professional baseball might not be there the next year, and just sign when they're not ready, are more likely to come to college and develop. And, college baseball is essentially, with all the minor league teams they've cut, is essentially turned into another form of minor league baseball, especially at our level. And you look at how fast now kids are getting to the big leagues. I mean, there's probably 15 to 20 kids that were in the Big 12 in the last 2 years that are already in the big leagues. Like Nick Kurtz is in the big leagues with the A's, and he was drafted in 2024. It not only shows you, like, you know, how talented he is as a player, obviously, but how good college baseball is and how good development pieces are now. I think that stuff's only been really good for our game.
Yeah, and I think it's great too because a lot of those kids that might sign in the first round, you see a lot of those kids saying, "Hey, I don't want to go. I want to go develop. Want to go play. I'll see you in my junior year, or if you're lucky enough to be a 21-year-old sophomore, I'll see you after my sophomore year." And I think it's great because there's so many horror stories you hear about kids signing and blowing it out and all this stuff. And hey, go get your money, do this, do that, and forego that baseball. Like college baseball, like for the fans that don't watch it, it's phenomenal stuff. And if like when you're tuning into a regional game, like I talked about, like the UTSA beating Texas, like those games are fun and you see talent everywhere. So I think it's great that kids are foregoing the draft and they're developing. And now you see those kids get fast tracked compared to sitting in the minor leagues for 6 years, bussing around on $3,000. Granted, they changed it, but they're getting $3,000 and living off their signing bonus and living in the middle of nowhere compared to, hey, they're throwing on Friday nights for Kansas State or they're throwing for UCLA. Like you're the starting shortstop for the Texases, the Alabamas, the things like that. I think it's just made the game as a whole in a much better place.
Yeah, those games are fun until you're on the wrong end of the UTSA deal, which we were, and they smoked us on Friday night, and they were good though. They were good. Yeah, it's really enhanced our game and made it a lot better, I think.
All right, Tommy, that's all I got for you. I want to thank you for joining the podcast today. I wish you and the Wildcats the best of luck this fall.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.